There is a saying that goes, "Beware the man who cries while others laugh." Why? Because such a person has tears on his face and joy in his heart. He is happy to be alive. And this is exactly what happened in Egypt in the year 1942, when hundreds of thousands of soldiers were dying and only a few remained alive to tell the tale. Being British-controlled at the time, it was involved in fighting against the Axis powers of Germany and Italy. On June 27, 1942, they fought against the German troops near a town called El Alamein. They needed a proper plan to deal with the Germans once and for all. So that's exactly what they did. Under the command of General Sir Bernard Montgomery, the British and Egyptians began to assemble their troops and supplies. On November 4th, he ordered his troops to dig in and prepare for a long siege. On November 7th, he ordered his troops to attack again. This time, the British were unstoppable. They pushed the Germans back, taking one hill after another. By November 8th, the tide of the battle had completely turned. The Germans were now on the run. And by November 10th, they had retreated all the way back to their original positions. The battle was over. His strategy was simple: wear down the Germans and wait for them to make a mistake. And that's exactly what happened. How does the Battle of El Alamein affect the Egyptians today? The answer may surprise you. You see, the Battle of El Alamein is still remembered in Egypt today. There are monuments and museums dedicated to the battle. It was a turning point in the war, and it showed the world that the Egyptians were brave and determined fighters. The battle also had a profound impact on Egypt today. The Egyptians are still inspired by the bravery of their ancestors who fought in the battle. And this gives us hope for the future of Egypt. And every year on November, Egyptians celebrate the anniversary of the battle. But the most interesting thing is that the battle has inspired a new generation of Egyptians to fight for their country. Since the revolution of 2011, Egypt has been going through a lot of changes. The country is still fighting against terrorism and extremism, and the economy is not doing well. But the Egyptians are not giving up. They are inspired by the bravery of their ancestors who fought in the Battle of El Alamein. On November 6th, the Germans made a small mistake, just a small one, which the British exploited and pushed them even further back. That is why we started this channel, to inspire the youth of today to make their countries better. This caused panic in the German ranks. Many German soldiers began to think about retreating. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. This marked the beginning of the Second Battle of El Alamein. For 2 days, both sides clashed against each other, neither willing to back down. It was brutal, very brutal. To commemorate this victory, General Montgomery held a ceremony at the El Alamein line on November 11th. During the ceremony, he praised his troops for their bravery and determination. He said, "You are the bulwarks of the Western world. You have held the enemy in the most trying circumstances and have thereby saved the whole of the Eastern Mediterranean." The British and Egyptians celebrated their victory. They knew that it was a hard-fought battle, but it was a necessary one. Without it, the Germans might have taken control of Egypt and the Middle East. They wanted to distract Rommel's forces long enough for them to regroup and launch a full-scale attack. The battle started off slow, but by November, the tempo increased as the Allies pushed the Germans further and further into the desert. The goal was clear: chase the Germans all the way back to their bases in Libya. However, as the battle continued, the British realized that the Germans were prepared. Despite being outnumbered, the Germans kept fighting. This made the British question whether they could win the battle or if they should pull back and regroup. But eventually, the German troops had to retreat, allowing the British and the Egyptians to take control over the town. From then on, the town would be known as the El Alamein line, named after the battle. Ever since the Italian invasion of Egypt in September of 1940, the Egyptians had been fighting alongside the British against the invaders. But things were not looking good. By June of 1942, the Germans had managed to push all the way through to the Egyptian border. That is when Field Marshal Erwin Rommel and his German troops arrived in the Western Desert, also known as the Egyptian Western Desert. They were ready to invade and occupy Egypt. This is one of the most tragic, yet triumphant moments in Egyptian history. And if you're not convinced, just listen to Winston Churchill's words. It may not have been a brilliant stroke of arms, but it was a most gallant exploit, and one which saved our army in Egypt and the whole of the eastern Mediterranean. So what happened in Egypt? What made Winston Churchill praise it so much? In this video, we will go back in time and witness one of the most important battles of World War II, the Battle of El Alamein. Make sure to stay till then because without giving any spoilers, let's just say that what happened next had a huge impact on Egypt. The year is 1942. As we speak, the world is at war and Egypt is no exception. But luckily for the Egyptians, their defenders were some of the bravest men to ever exist, both British and Egyptian soldiers. But despite the victory, the British realized that this war could last for years and the Germans would keep coming back. In October, the British launched their attack against the Germans. As the pressure mounted, General Montgomery decided to play his final card. That's when General Montgomery made his move. The British and Egyptians had won. However, there is a twist to this story, a sad twist. Although the battle was a victory for the British and Egyptians, it came at a great cost. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers died in the battle, and the Egyptian people suffered greatly. But the saddest part is that many Egyptians see the battle as a British victory rather than an Egyptian one. You see, the battle was fought on Egyptian soil, but it was the British who planned and executed the attack. The Egyptians were simply there to support them. And that's why many Egyptians feel that they didn't get the recognition they deserved for their bravery. So what can we learn from this story? We can learn that even though wars are fought between countries, it is the people who suffer the most. We can also learn that it is important to remember the sacrifices of those who fought in the Battle of El Alamein, regardless of which side they were on. And finally, we can learn that even in the darkest of times, hope can prevail. The Battle of El Alamein was a hard-fought battle, but in the end, it was the good guys who won. Now let's talk about what's happening in Egypt today. We think that this is a great thing. We believe that every country should remember the sacrifices of their ancestors and use it as inspiration to make their country better. In conclusion, the Battle of El Alamein was one of the most important battles of World War II. We hope that you enjoyed learning about this important battle.